So good afternoon everyone. I'd like to welcome on behalf of the Batorego Foundation and Open Society Georgia Foundation, especially our guest, Vano Chkhikvadze. I practice it all the morning because I still cannot pronounce it. And Krzysztofa Mrozka, who is sitting next to me. They are both authors of the report It's Georgia Time. As some of you know, since 2002, Stefan Batorego Foundation has been realizing the project that is called EU-friendly border. That's been on eliminating on visa between EU and Eastern Partnership countries and EU and Russia, and we also monitor the Eastern Eastern Polish border. Since 2010, Ukraine and Moldova received so-called Visa Liberalization Action Plan. Georgia did it in 2013. As probably you know, it is divided into two phases, that is legislation and implementation. Since this year, Moldovan citizens are allowed to go to EU without visas. Ukraine and Georgia is still in the first phase. However, there is a new European Commission report that Georgia is ready for the second phase, and then going to the second phase. We are waiting for EU Council decision. And because of June, we produced the report on the visa dialogue between EU and Ukraine. It was especially very needed after the Ukrainian revolution. Now we decided to do the same regarding Georgia. So I just give the floor to both authors of the report, Vano and Krzysztof.
Yes, thank you very much. I will briefly present the reasons why we decided to write this report and our conclusions and most important recommendations from the report. This is the report. And as you probably know, all 6 Eastern Partnership countries and to a smaller extent Russia undergo similar procedure of visa liberalization. The starting point, all post-Soviet countries, citizens required visas to enter the Schengen area. And a special path, a special procedure with several steps was designed for the visa liberalization. First, the third country conclude the visa facilitation agreement and the readmission agreement with the European Union that allows the visa fee to be smaller, and it allows to readmit the illegal migrants from the territory of the Schengen area to the third country. Upon the positive assessment of the implementation of these agreements, the visa dialogue is launched, and the visa liberalization action plan is prepared for the country. Theoretically, it's tailor-made for the country, but in practice, it has very similar structures. It's divided into 4 blocks and covers most of states' activity, requiring some 40 reforms to be performed before the visa liberalization is possible. By now, 3 countries of the post-Soviet area have received this document, and 1, Moldova, managed to, as Jakub said, fulfill all the criteria and get the visa-free regime since April this year. We may say that Ukraine and Georgia are in the similar position now, implementing last reforms, and the visa-free regime is expected in Georgia in 2016. While the decision and recommendation of the European Commission to consider action plan as fully implemented is expected at the Eastern Partnership Summit in Riga May next year. We should notice that Georgian path is much shorter, and it took for Georgia much shorter than for Ukraine to implement the reforms of the action plan. And we decided to write this paper that you probably all received to analyze what's left to be done in this area of visa liberalization for Georgia until the decision of the Commission is possible. Looking at the first block that covers document security, we should say that Georgia is most advanced among Eastern Partnership countries, issuing biometric passports for its citizens since 2010, and since this year only biometric passports are issued also in consular offices of Georgia abroad. Still, there is no clear action plan to phase out old type passports. This is one of our recommendations, as we'll see afterwards. Also, due to European Commission recommendation, Georgia specified rules for obtaining second passports, adopting the one person, one passport rule in general, and limiting situations when a second passport is allowed. Official of the Public Service Development Agency responsible for issuance of identity documents received modern code of conduct to avoid corruption threats. And data protection, one of the most problematic areas, is being improved. Anti-corruption trainings for official dealings with passports, which is a very vulnerable area, are ongoing and provided for all officials. Before going to the second block, I would like to show you this picture. It's taken by me when presenting the paper in Georgia. It's the so-called Palace of Justice. It houses the Ministry of Justice of Georgia, but also the public service of issuance, all kinds of state documents in a one-window rule. Practically no queues, you can see there. The service is very fast. Citizens can pay for passports by credit card. Everything runs really smoothly, and it's really impressive and worth seeing when in Georgia. Okay, so let's move to the second block. Second block covers border and migration management issues, as well as asylum. Here we can say that Georgia is also well advanced, but still faces problems with non-demarcated borders with neighbors. Although it's not the benchmark of the action plan, it also influences on the functioning of border. Legislation sets out all rules for border and migration management in line with European standards, and recently entered into force law on foreigners, in force since September this year, strengthened the rules for entering and remaining on the territory of Georgia. The rules previously were world's most liberal, allowing to stay for a year without registration or any permits. Following European Commission recommendations, these rules were tightened. Also, tight asylum rules were adopted, where the application has to be launched after within 24 hours upon arrival to Georgia, and theoretically, when the application is made after 24 hours, it should be automatically rejected. But as practice shows, it hasn't happened yet. I will give floor to Vano for next blocks.
Well, thank you so much to Stefan Batorego Foundation and Krzysztof and Kuba for putting everything together. Thanks for coming. I will briefly touch to two important blocks of the Visa Liberalization Action Plan, and I would say that these are toughest blocks ever. One is about the public security and order, and another one coming next. The fourth block is about the external relations and fundamental rights. Here are some benchmarks that actually Georgia more or less managed to fulfill. The country adopted the new law for police. There's also the new strategy and action plan to fight against organized crime. It has also Interagency Council on Fighting Against Organized Crime, which is actually in charge of implementation of the aforementioned strategy and the action plan. There's also quite successful achievement, quite big success when it comes to the fight against corruption. the country also adopted the law on personal data protection, and there is an office of the personal data protection inspector which is established and which is functioning with extension of functions considering the new recent law, which is about the surveillance of the citizens, which Georgia Parliament adopted 1 week ago. Coming to the fourth block, there are three major benchmarks. One is the anti-discrimination law, which actually was extremely controversial in the country and it was adopted in May. There was a huge opposition coming from the Georgian Orthodox Church and also some pro-Russian political parties with a Russian agenda, and it was quite a tough exercise for the Georgian government. There is also a new law on citizenship, which is also adopted. It was adopted not a long time ago, and the third one is about Georgian law on legal status of foreigners and the stateless persons. As Krzysztof mentioned, the first phase of the visa liberalization action plan, which means the adoption of all the legislations, has successfully accomplished. And now the most important part is going to start, and this is the implementation of those laws which were adopted. This is very tough and very important considering the history of the country, because Georgia was more or less okay when it was coming to the adoption of the laws, but it had a lot of problems when it was to the implementation of the legislation. So I have to mention that actually on Monday the European Commission assessment mission will visit Tbilisi in order to assess the implementation of the second phase of the first block of the visa liberalization action plan. However, there are 7 challenges. I just want to identify those 7 challenges that might arise on the way of visa-free travel. The first challenge is about the visa refusal rate, and you can see the statistics, but just for better understanding, I can show you the comparison of the visa refusal rate to the Eastern Partnership countries plus Russia. Georgia has the highest refusal rate, visa refusal rate. This is about the C categories, short-term visas, compared to Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Moldova, Ukraine, and Russia. And the good trend is that it's going down, it decreases, but still, if you look at the 2013, this is an official data coming from the DG Home Affairs, you can see that it's 12%, which is highest among other countries. This is one of the challenges which might face Georgia on the way of visa-free travel. The second biggest challenge is about the asylum seekers. The number of the asylum seekers is very high. It used to be higher in 2012 when it reached 10,830 people. But then we saw that it decreased. This is the official statistics of Asylum Support Office of the European Union, and as you see, in 2013 it came down to 9,110. Georgia ranks 16th country among those states whose citizens applied for asylum to the European Union. And what is more interesting is that out of these 9,110 applications, 8,020 were new applications. The good thing is that the recognition rate is very low, but actually those people are basically trying to use those benefits which are offered by the United States as asylum seekers. So basically abusing these opportunities. So here are the statistics about the asylum seekers. These are actually 6 countries which are targeted by Georgian asylum seekers. Most of them are on the EU's external border, as you can see, Poland in case of Poland or in case of Slovakia. Poland is the #1 destination country of the asylum seekers. Last year we saw 1,214 applications coming filled by Georgian citizens. Then it's Greece, Latvia, Slovakia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So these are the 6 major destination and target countries of the Georgian asylum seekers. The third challenge which Georgia is facing is actually about the denial of entry on the border. In 2013, actually, there were 8,100 Georgian citizens denied to enter the Schengen zone, and basically and mostly it was the reason that they didn't have the valid visas or residence permits, and Georgia stands fifth after Russia, Ukraine, Albania, and Serbia in these statistics. The fourth challenge, and it's actually, you can see the number actually increased. As you see, in 2010 it was more than 3,000, and in 2013 it reached more than, it exceeded 8,000 people from the Georgian citizens. The fourth challenge is about the personal data protection, and there is actually the lack of the effective mechanism to monitor the surveillance, also the collecting, processing, and keeping personal data. There is an urgent need of the strengthening the capacity of the personal data office, the personal data protection inspector's office, and there is pretty much nothing done in terms of data protection in the fields of education, social, and healthcare sectors. So these are some challenges facing all the world. The fifth challenge is actually related to the human rights and basically trafficking of human persons. Here is a quote coming from the US State Department report of 2013. It's a summer report. It's about Georgia. Georgia used to be in the first group, first tier of the countries, which was successful addressing the issues related to the human trafficking, but it actually was moved to the second tier back in 2012, and it still remains there, which means that the situation has actually deteriorated. And there is a quote coming from the report saying that women from Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and other countries are subject to forced prostitution in Georgia's commercial sex trade in the tourist areas of Batumi and Gonio in Adjara region. The sixth challenge is, as I said, it's all about the anti-discrimination law, which was pretty much badly communicated to the people from the government of Georgia, which was pretty much used by the Georgian Orthodox Church and by the pro-Russian political forces. Finally, the anti-discrimination law, which was adopted in May 2014, actually meets the minimum standards of the EU, European Union, and as I said, there was a strong opposition from the Georgian Orthodox Church, and I just quote, and why I mentioned the Georgian Orthodox Church, because it's the most trusted institution in the country. It's 92% of the society trusts the Georgian Church, and this is a quote from the Patriarch of Georgia saying that actually not a single believer will accept such law. And so when it comes to the second phase, it will be one of the toughest things, tough nut to crack when it comes to the implementation of this anti-discrimination law. It will be tougher than just passing it, you know. And there is not clarity about the second issue, which is related to the European Charter for Regional Minority Languages. It was actually mentioned in the Visa Liberalization Action Plan that Georgia has to adopt this. Then you can see that you actually highlighted this in the first progress report, which was issued back in at the beginning of the year. And now in the second progress report, which the European Union issued recently at the end of October, there is no mentioning of this document, the ratification of the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages. I do aware that even some EU member states don't have ratified this treaty, but you can see that the wording related to and the commitment related to this part actually had disappeared from the agenda. And my last point about when it comes to the challenges is about the border management. Georgia, as I mentioned, adopted the border management strategy, but now it comes to the implementation of the document. When you arrive to Tbilisi airport or when you arrive to Batumi airport, you can easily find out that everything is functioning very well. I mean, the border guards are smiling at you, etc., etc. But as soon as you go to the so-called green border, you can identify that not much has been done. I mean, even the infrastructure is lacking at the green border, and it's extremely poor situation when you go there. I mean, as I said, there's a wonderful situation when it comes to the checkpoints, but when it is really drastic when it comes to the green border. So basically, these are like general challenges. What is way ahead is about the second phase, about the implementation of the visa liberalization action plan and those new legislative pieces which was adopted by the Georgian government, which is, as I said, which needs stronger efforts than it was in case of just adoption of them. Okay, I will go back to...
Yeah, and we'll finish the presentation with recommendations. You can see on the last page of our paper there's a list of a number of recommendations actually, but most of them are also reflected in European Commission's documents, so I don't see a point in telling them once again. They touch the exact parts of legislation to be adopted, but what we think is most important to recommend from our point of view, except of improving border management and data protection, what Vano already mentioned, is to conduct, it's the recommendation for Georgian authorities to conduct 2 public campaigns, public awareness campaigns, in order to improve people's knowledge about visa procedures, the facilitated visa regime, and what does the visa liberalization mean, and well, in fact, what it doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean the right to work without work permit in the European Union. And this is very important to limit the number of refusals of entry at the external borders of the European Union and refusals in the issuance of visas. Well, we identified that the high refusal rate may be caused by the fact that Georgians are only among Eastern Partnership citizens that need visas to Russia. So European Union is more obvious direction for illegal workforce. We also recommend not to set the exact dates, not to compromise the process of visa liberalization with setting exact dates that are unable to be met. We also decided, unlike the European Commission in its reports, to recommend several steps to the European Union. First recommendation is to intensify the local Schengen cooperation. It's the cooperation between consular offices in third country. The part of this recommendation that you will find in the report was preparing the unified list of supporting documents, and this recommendation was already fulfilled. So this is the important step, because now in every consulate of the European Union member state, the same supporting documents for visa application might be asked to be delivered. We also recommended to include NGOs in the visa liberalization process in the Joint Commission for the assessment of the implementation of the action plan. And after publicly declaring this recommendation in Tbilisi a month ago, on the next day, the Minister of Justice declared that it's gonna be fulfilled, but we still check on this because still no concrete steps were made. We also recommend to the European Union not to ease these requirements listed in the action plan on the political grounds, because when fulfilled, all 40 recommendations or 40 benchmarks, Georgia will become a better governed country. So we recommend to assess carefully all the benchmarks from the action plan and not to decide to drop this reform process on the political grounds. So these are the recommendations I wanted to mention. And please, Kuba, I'll give you the floor.
Just very short remark, because the presentation is over, and of course Krzysztof and Vano introduced the report they wrote, but of course, as you heard, Visa Liberalization Action Plan contains all the reforms regarding the whole state, so it is the fundament, as you see in the proposal for our discussion, to think about what should be next. What should we to do next in order to getting closer Georgia to European Union and to the whole reforms. And I've got one request, because I'm tweeting the debate. When you start talking, please give your name and surname, and then I could put in the surname who is talking that, if you are not against, of course.
Yeah, so we are open for any comments of our paper, any questions, but also please refer to the proposed thesis for the discussion, proposed topic. So since you work for various institutions, have various experience with Georgia, please present your point of view and your opinions, both on the visa liberalization process and the association of Georgia with the European Union. So, yes.
Piotr Iwaszkiewicz, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland. I would like to present not my opinion but our position as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. In our opinion, Georgia do very good work completing first phase of Lab. As we know, the report after completing first phase was positive. We do hope Georgia will be successful implementing or doing second phase as well. And we do hope that the report after second phase will be also positive. And it is our hope that during Riga summit, the finishing of end of second phase of LEP will be declared. And also during Riga summit, it will be shown clear non-visa regime perspective for Georgia. It is our expectation, and we will do our best to help Georgia in it. So it's a position of Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay, I have a question then towards what you said. Paweł Liskiewicz, editor-in-chief of Eastbook EU. You said that one of the recommendations is the information campaign for the Georgian citizens. Any ideas how to do that? Because that's a matter that we can actually, in an active way, help with our portal, and we would like to do that. Are there any actions concerning this part? Whether Batorego Foundation is going to do something like that or contribute to this matter? And if not foundation, then any other institution that you're in contact with?
Well, thank you for this question. Well, I think that the most important role there is Georgian authorities in cooperation with Georgian civil society organizations and media. But we do have our small campaign on visa facilitation in all Eastern Partnership countries and Russia, except of Moldova. The Visa Guide project, we launched the website and we prepared the information brochures for visa applicants, where in approachable language we basically we translate this European language into the normal language, how the visa procedures look like.
And it's in English or in Russian?
It's in English, it's in languages of Eastern Partnership countries, and it's in Russian. But we don't see, well, we have to admit that we don't have enough capacities to conduct a nationwide campaign in Georgia. That's why we decided to recommend it to Georgian authorities to consider this step, and we hope it's going to be fulfilled.
Well, I just want to add up there. Actually, the Georgian government last year adopted the EU integration communication strategy. This is a governmental document which covers the period 2014-2017, and you can find this document on the website of the Office of the State Minister of European and Euro-Atlantic Integration. And annually, this ministry actually prepares the action plans of implementation of this strategy. So basically, in this year, I mean in next year, basically in 2015, it's recommended that there should be the campaign on the visa liberalization. And it was very correctly mentioned here that the thing is that, particularly in the rural parts of Georgia, the expectation to the visa-free travel is that the people are expecting that it's about the opportunity to get a job in the European Union without all the procedures, and that's of course not true. So I think that, and the Georgian government, as soon as this positive decision approaches and the Riga summit approaches, the Georgian government should try more in order to send this message to the people that actually it's not about the visa, it's not about the opportunity of work, like a right of work, or one of the freedoms of the European Union, but it's about this staying in the EU for 90 days out of 180. So.
Paweł Pulski, Common Europe Foundation and Eastbook EU. You write that the number of asylum seekers from Georgia is the highest of all EAP states, and what's the reason for this state of affairs?
Well, I mean, it's pretty tough to give the proven example, but we can only do the guessing. One of them is, as it was correctly mentioned, is that this is the destination, the European Union, where Georgians actually are headed, because you need a visa to go to Russia, and this is very tough procedure. I mean, you almost cannot get a visa if you don't have your family member, and family member means brother, sister, or mother, or your wife, who's legally residing in Russia. So basically, they are trying to come. The route generally they are taking is they are coming to Belarus, and then they are applying to Poland here to the Polish border. They see that it's easier to do that. And secondly, they think that it's the benefits they might get here in the European Union are much more higher or much more kind of lucrative than the benefits they might go to do. I mean, they don't have any other opportunities to go somewhere. Like there is the Russian asylum seeking in Russia. It's not quite successful, and it's not very attractive. So that's why they're trying to come to Europe, and as I said, generally they are trying to European Union, and generally they are trying to address to the countries which are like having the external borders with the EU. It's like, since you have the visa-free travel to Belarus, it's easier to come to Belarus and then to knock on the door of the European Union.
Bartosz Marcinkowski, New Eastern Europe magazine. So referring to your question, why Poland is the most popular, let's say, destination for asylum seekers? This is what you said, that we go to Belarus, and then it's because Poland is close to Belarus, or there are some other reasons?
Well, I mean, generally, as we know, this is because one of the reasons, because it's the first, like, kind of the door to enter to the European Union. Secondly, that they believe that the package which is offered to them is more better than the package they are getting in Slovakia. Thirdly, they have the people actually who are already residing here in Poland, and they are relying on the support of these people. That if they go here, and then all these procedures, right? When you are applying, you have to wait for the court decision, and generally that's how it works. When you see that the court decision would be negative, then you are trying to go to different countries, then they apply, I don't know, to Czech Republic, then they go, and you're just making a tour around Europe, and then at the end of the day you're expelled. So basically these are the two reasons. One is the closeness and the entrance and opportunity to go there, and the second one is opportunity to benefit with a social package which is this time allocated for the asylum seekers.
Iwona Galiszewska, University of Warsaw Institute of Ethnology and Cultural Anthropology. I was just thinking maybe that if this visa facilitation process, which I support, is going to change much, because the problem is that the Georgian middle class can travel freely to Europe anyway. I mean, they have to apply for visas, but they get that anyway. And of course, it will be easier for them, it will be more fun for them to travel. But the rest of the people who are hardly making their living, they will not travel to Roma or to London just for fun, because they don't have money for that. If they want to travel to Europe, is to work. So I mean, allowing them to work would change things, but just facilitating the visa process, it will change things. Maybe they can visit their relatives. Maybe that changes. I still support it, but nevertheless, I think it's just this operating on the level of the middle class. If you see all these nice places in Georgia, all these kind of state buildings, you feel, wow, Georgia has changed, the middle class, the life of the middle class has changed, but the life of the other people have not so much. And it's the same with all these regulations. Who is the target group of them? And what do you think about that? That is going to change the life of the everyday Georgians?
Well, the good thing is that this goes in parallel of the Open Sky Agreement that Georgia actually joined. This is really very successful, and I know that a lot of friends, Polish friends, are actually very benefiting of this cheap air travel going to Kutaisi with Wizz Air. So, if we take this as an opportunity, we see this as an opportunity, and if we join this with this visa-free travel and the low-cost airlines, I think that this is something which you can see that the benefits would be extended not only to the middle class, which can more or less travel to Europe, but also to poor people. This is one thing. The second thing is that, as you might know, there are a lot of Georgians residing in different countries of the European Union, and I can give you a lot of examples that, and if you look at the remittances sent back to Georgia, it's significant, you know. And it would be, and there are people who actually, it's about the family reunifications. There's also human dimension. There are people who actually are simply stopped in Greece because they know that once they travel to Greece, and there is, I mean, of course they are illegal laborers, and no one proves that they are like legally residing there, of course not. But these people actually, these are people who have not seen their families, their kids for 5, 7, 8, 9 years, because they know that if they go back to Georgia, they would have no opportunity to go back to Greece. I think that this human dimension should be also taken into consideration, because these people who reside in, I don't know, in Greece or in other countries in Italy, they would have an opportunity to go there and not to kind of stuck there in Italy, in Greece, etc., etc. It's quite significant. And the second and the third thing is that I'm one of the supporters of association agreement. Definitely, it goes without saying. And I think that that's a huge success of the European Union, generally speaking. And now it's more about the implementation of the association agreement. But as we see, and as we know, and there's a study done by a feasibility study done by CASE, Polish think tank, on what would be the impact of the DCFTA. We see that actually, in the short run, it's more about the regulatory. It's about the costs, not the benefits of the DCFTA or not the association agreement. So. And you know that in Georgia, it's 78% supports Georgia's eventually membership. It's unbelievably high. And I can assure you that this is not unconditional support. If these people don't get really some kind of benefits, they would lose the attraction. They would say that, okay, it's nothing about it. And I think that this is something very tangible, that person, imagine, who's residing somewhere in Zugdidi or in Kutaisi, doesn't actually has to go all these humiliating procedures of getting visas. And believe me, it's really humiliating, because you have to submit all your applications, and you have to submit all your spendings, basically, where you spent during your last 3 months. And he or she could actually take his passport, biometric passport, and if he decides so, or if she has money for buying the cheap tickets, she or he can go out and see. And this is, if we want European integration, it shouldn't be the fortress. It should be have an opportunity. Let's give them this opportunity. Okay? Let's see how they can exploit it.
And we should also not forget about the indirect influence of the visa liberalization process. As we discussed and as we shown it also in the presentation, these 40 or 45 important reforms are being conducted with the aim to get the visa liberalization, but they influence very much on the living of average citizen, like this Palace of Justice document issuance place that I showed on the picture, or data protection, or anti-discrimination legislation. So this would probably either way be adopted, but due to the visa liberalization process, it has been adopted faster and with international support. So I would not like to miss this influence of the visa liberalization.
And if I may add a very, very short intervention from my side, it's also about the conflict regions. Because people who are residing in Abkhazia or South Ossetia, this visa-free travel would push them to take the Georgian passports. Because this is something very attractive. I mean, I cannot say it for 100% guarantee that if we have visa-free travel, all of them would just rush and take the Georgian passports. But it might have a positive influence for those people who just to attract them to take the Georgian passports and to benefit with this opportunity.
Just comment, as you know, President of Georgia is present in Poland. Well, 1 hour ago, he had a meeting in PISM, Polish Institute of International Relations, and he expressed the same opinion that VLAP will be an argument in resolving of Ossetian and Abkhaz conflict.
We can contribute.
Yeah, because inhabitants of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, or Abkhazia and Samochavlo, will go to Tbilisi to obtain Georgian passports in order to have some benefits from the blood. Well, it's interesting opinion, but I have some doubts about the mob of Abkhazians and Ossetians storming passport desks in Tbilisi. So, well,
I agree. I mean, there are of course risks.
Good luck, but
yeah. I don't think that all of the people would go there. I mean, I don't expect that there would be like Russian people coming from Sukhumi or from Guagaragara or from the Skin Valley. I don't expect that. But even if there's like a very small number of people, it wears a patch. It's an argument.
Yeah, okay. Of course, they have had such a possibility as a Georgian citizen. Just to go to Tbilisi or somewhere to Didia, I don't know, Glorious, to obtain Georgian passport, but it was not very popular way to they have mostly Russian passports. I'm afraid. Another comment. You are perfectly right that to adopt law is much easier than to implement it. I spent some time in Georgia in August and September this year, and I was looking how this migration law is implemented. It was quite a lot of problems. As you know, probably part of this law were somehow suspended, or because of many problems it evokes. And I must add also that it was quite something to stay almost all the day waiting for the entrance in Sapi and for Georgia too. The problem was in the Georgian side, so it's probably a lot to do. But still, we're supporting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as it refers to the loan alliance on foreigners, I agree. It was actually the requirement of the European Union, but not to tighten it that way as Georgia did. And then there was a step done by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then a step done by Minister of Justice, saying that actually they are apologizing for that type of thing and complicating the situation. Now they're working on how to address this law again. I fully agree with you that it was a step to the right direction, because there was a need to improve and to register for foreigners, because during the last several years nobody knew how many foreigners were visiting Georgia, what were their status, etc., etc. But when it comes to the substance of the law, I do agree that actually it created more problems than it gave some solutions. So
I still do believe that you will be successful with the second phase of that, and then non-visa regime in the future, near future.
Maciej Polkowski, Center for Eastern Studies. I have one comment and two questions. One comment about Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Frankly speaking, I doubt that these people will come to Tbilisi for passports. Yeah? Not because they don't want, but I think they will not have a possibility to go, because de facto governments, yes, of South Ossetia and Abkhazia can stop them to do it. And now we can see that Russians are step by step closing borders, yes, between these regions and Georgia proper. And two questions. One about also Abkhazia and Ossetia. You didn't mention it in your presentation. In your opinion, these two problems, they are obstacles in some way for visa liberalization process. And the second, more, let's say, political question: do you see any political challenges, not only for visa liberalization process, but in general, implementation of association agreement and pro-Western, pro-European direction of Georgian policy? I mean, internal political challenges and, of course, external geopolitical.
Well, thanks for your questions. As I say, we don't have the guarantee. I do share your point about the all this like attractiveness. It's not like a 100% guarantee, but it's worth to. I have to actually mention that this is not a huge secret of Georgia, that when it comes to the humanitarian reasons, there are some people who actually come to this. When it comes to the surgeries, I can assure you that there are like people who are coming to Zugidi, to Kutaisi, to Tbilisi, just to have a medical treatment because they are fully aware that there is no proper medical treatment in Abkhazia, and it takes much more time and much more efforts and they are benefiting it for free in the other part of Georgia. So this gives a very good ground to think that actually if they see the kind of benefits, they might consider to take the Georgian passport. And I do agree with you that considering all the closure of all these checkpoints along the Guri River, along the ABL, administrative borderline, of course it will complicate the things, but again, I mean, this is something that's one of the arguments why we need the visa culture. Frankly speaking, I don't think that, answering to your questions, I don't think that Abkhazia and South Ossetia would be a problem for visa-free travel, because we have the clear case of Moldova, which actually benefited with the same visa-free travel and has a problem related. It's not a copy and paste for sure. There's differences, but still, I mean, it's a very good example of how actually Moldova managed to do that. And again, I don't see any problem when it comes to the visa liberalization, namely, and Abkhazia and South Ossetia. As it comes to the challenges, definitely, I see a lot of challenges, and I see a lot of, I would say, negative sides when it comes to the Georgia-EU integration. And I don't believe that it's about the changing of the course. It's not about at all about the foreign policy. It's Georgia sticks to NATO and particularly the EU integration. But it comes that sometimes it's about the vision generally. You know, it's more about the details. Say, Georgia was much more concentrated on who would go to Brussels and who would sign the association agreement, the president or the prime minister. It was ridiculous, you know, and there was no talk at all who would implement this or how we would implement this association agreement.
It's no problem.
Well, I mean, it was more about this kind of signature and who, when, how, and when, rather than who would implement or how we should implement the association. I think that where I see the problem is about the implementation of the association agreement and implementation of these tough these reforms which are. The second is that Georgia was believed, and it still is kind of avant-garde in the case of South Ossetia, in case of South Caucasus. But you see that the reforms actually are stalled somewhere, and how the Georgia can keep the status of the reformist country, we will see it in a nearest future. And there are several challenges which I have to mention when it comes here. It's about the sustainability of some of the reforms that the Georgian dream and the new government actually started, like a general health insurance, and it's like each and every citizen can benefit with a free medical treatment, which is fine, which is great, but in parallel it costs 3 billion lari, which is more than 1 billion euro, which is almost half of the Georgian budget. And how you can sustain this kind of benefit to each and every citizen is one of the clear example of that. The second challenge is about the internal challenge is about the religious upheavals. You can see that there are some kind of tension between the Christian and the Muslim communities, and you never know who and how can use this as in their own interests.
Are they really serious, do you think?
I think so. It could become this serious. There is this tension. There is this like kind of hotbed, and somebody can use it in the future. And the biggest problem is also about the power holder. It's not a president. I mean, it's a person who is not in the government at all. You know, and that's one of the biggest challenge when the power holder is not yet at the official position in the country. And it's also, and when it comes to the external challenges about I have to mention this huge and the growing economic dependence of Georgia on Russia. If you look at the trade, Russia used to be the 10th foreign trade partner of Georgia back in 2011. and now it's number third. If you look at the Georgian wine export, 65% of Georgian wine goes to Russian market. Georgia is number third importer in Russian market of the wine. The mineral waters, it goes the same. Actually the people, and particularly in the rural areas, when they are telling them that actually these are the standards that you have to meet in order to export to new market. And it's a Russian market which you can export anything you would like to, because this is a politically motivated, and okay, you cannot depend fully there, but in a short run they would rather address that. And my last point is about the changing of this so-called ABL. This not ABL, but this fences. It's approaching. It's coming and coming and coming. And if you compare this, what had happened to some, if you compare this like during the last 2 years, Georgia actually lost something like all in all the 30 kilometers of the territory. It's because of these fences moving towards the Georgian territory, Georgian border.
Anna Strzemżerska, the European University at Sankt Petersburg. There is a big amount of people who have 2 passports. So what to do with them? For example, Abkhazians, they have Russian or Abkhazian passports. So how can you follow the process if they give the passport back or not? Because it's not allowed actually. So there is a big problem. They very often come to Russia, they work there, and after that they will come to Europe. So how can the problem be solved?
I think that it was already mentioned. It's one person, one passport policy. That's required by the European Union. So it's up to that person who has to decide whether he wants to keep the Russian passport, or he actually has to give up the Russian passport or take, I don't know, so-called Abkhazian passport or so-called Ossetian passport. I mean, it's up to the person.
Can you follow the process? Actually, do you really know that one person has just one passport? Because maybe it's very difficult to
it's absolutely, it's very difficult. There are some Georgian, ethnic Georgians who actually have 2 passports. Like it depends on whether the country recognizes a double citizenship or not. In case of Russia, it does not. In case of Georgia, it does. So when the people are coming to Georgia, they are actually using their Georgian passports, and when they are in Russia,
so how can you check it?
You can't control that.
Yes,
simply, it's not possible.
So there is a big problem actually.
It's not possible when it comes to the Russian and then Georgian passports. It's how can you control that? And there is no cooperation, as you know. There are no diplomatic links between Georgia and Russia, and you can't really change this information. Who has this passport there?
Yeah, you wanted to comment on?
I did. I think Cordelia Ponczek with the Polish Institute of International Affairs. I think you've raised a point, but it's not unique to this situation. This exists in international borders, period. And so if I want to travel between Poland and the United States on a US passport, that is the passport that has my credentials, and that's what I have to travel on. If I wanted to somehow introduce a Polish passport into the mix, then it wouldn't be recognized at the border. It wouldn't be it. So I don't think it's unique to this situation, and I think that international standards would apply, and that's how it would be solved. I don't think it's a new problem. I think it'll just be solved the way it's solved anywhere else.
It's not a new problem, but it is a problem.
But I don't think it's going to open any other doors that don't already exist in this, in the possibility of owning 2 passports or more. I don't know.
I would like to come back just for a second to the issue of religion and ask about the role of Orthodox Church in Georgia. As in many countries, to name Serbia, for example, Orthodox Church plays a role of advocate of Russian interests. And I would like to ask, how does it look in Georgia, as its well-respected institution enjoys great support by people in Georgia, and can it become a threat to the integration of the EU in the future, in a way, in Georgia, or not?
I guess, and as I mentioned, it depends. And what I have to say at the beginning, that actually when it comes to the actors which are targeted by the Russia, is absolutely different than it's targeted by European Union and the United States. I barely remember there was only one case when Commissioner Fule met with the Patriarch of Georgia, and he is, as I said, a very influential person in the country. And that was quite a successful visit. And any other leaders coming from Europe or the United States, they didn't really pay visits to this institution, which is not excellent, but it's something where you really see that they have an influence in this country. So I think that when it comes to the church, a lot depends on the patriarch, which has a quite deteriorating health conditions now. So he's actually act as a glue, sticking all these different actors within the church. If nothing happens and he's not anymore able to rule this church, we would see that there would be a lot of separation and a lot of attacks on each other in different groups in the church. As it is now, at a rhetorical basis, and the Patriarch said it after the meeting with Stefan Fulek, the former commissioner, saying that church is supporting Georgia's EU membership. That's on the rhetorical level. But there are the cases, and this is not a unique feature. There are also some actors, some guys here, and some clergy who are actually pretty much opposing all these trends. And we saw when there was a lot of sexual minorities beaten 2 years ago in Tbilisi, that it was like a group of clergy who were supporting this and a group of clergy who were against it. So I wouldn't say that it's a unique and it's a homogeneous institution, because within this church you see that there are different trends coming up and down, and now they're actually trying actually they are fighting actually to become the successor of the country.
May I comment? On Georgian Orthodox Church, I agree with you, but I would like to add that it seems Georgian Orthodox Church is quite strongly connected to Russian Orthodox Church. Most of clergy educated in Russia, Sergei Posad and such kind of places, with certain results. In this regard, I have a question. Do you know how President of Georgia came to Poland now?
What do you mean?
To open the session of Saint Holy Grigor Peradze. So we have a Polish Georgian saint, a martyr,
yes,
who dies in Auschwitz, in the same way like Maximilian Kolbe. And during this session, he was professor of Warsaw University, by the way, a pathologist, theologist. And during the session, the second band of wars of Holy Grigor Peradze in Georgia, translated to Georgian, because he was writing in German, Polish, French, and so on and so forth. And now we translated it to Georgian, and it will be presented. But it was presented during this session. First band was published last year, and we are going to make a presentation into this as well. And it is a kind of basis to do something on this field as well. We work out the program Peradze, which foreseen education of some clerks of Georgian Orthodox Church in Poland, because Holy Grigor Peradze is a saint of the Polish Orthodox Church too. We have an education basis for clergy in Poland as well. So, well, maybe it's a maybe not on the way to change something, but it's a small path from the beginning. The second comment, implementation of AA-DCFTA, which will be challenging. First of all, DCFTA, because it's such a big mountain of paper. Last year, during the visit of President Margvelashvili, we proposed our assistance in implementation of AA-DCFTA. As you know, in the beginning of 90s, Holland offers to Poland so-called Utrecht Conference mechanism. It's quite a long story. It's this year it was a 15 session of this conference, so the story is quite long. It was extremely helpful, first in preparation to access European Union, and then to live with and in Union. 5 years ago, we start to be not only the pupil but also the teacher, and we start with so-called Skopje conference. So we multiplicated this mechanism for Macedonia. Now we are going to do the same with Georgia. We presented this idea to President Margvelashvili last year. President was quite enthusiastic, I would say. And we will start with the project probably early next year. We are going to send, Mr. Foreign Affairs, Grzegorz Schetyna, is going to go to Tbilisi in order to inaugurate the conference. I do hope it will be, January, maybe February next year, and it will be our input in implementing AA-DCFTA, which is really challenging task.
May I ask you something?
Of course.
I do appreciate this support, but it's also about the ratification of the association agreement. And
we are in process.
Okay, but how long it will take?
Well, it's, as far as I know, it's among us, okay?
Okay.
It is in Prime Minister's office, and quite soon he will send it to the Parliament.
Okay.
I think, frankly speaking, I'm expecting the ratification process will be completed early next year.
Okay.
So there's no problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's just procedure.
One comment, as a small break. We, like Poland with Georgia, has not only common signs but also political features, as Mr. Falkowski said. This idea of who will go and sign the ratification is like of both countries. Maybe that's why we like each other so much. Coming back to the border issue, I have a question concerning Georgian-Turkish border, because like on a days there was information from RIA Novosti. I'm not saying that like it was truth or something, but that's an important one, which actually they said that the border between Georgia and Turkey is open, and it was putting into the information about transfer of the jihadists, terrorists, basically security issues from different place through Georgia and then or to Russia or to European Union. So it might be an obstacle concerning this information war and information propaganda around Georgia within the ratification and so on and so on. So like the question, are you concerned about that, and do you have any ideas how to manage that? Because I'm pretty sure it will be used, especially with if the ratification of the visa-free regime will be set. And how does the border really looks like? Whether it is pretty easy to cross it, or it's rather then if the ratification will take place, whether it would be stronger control or something.
There are actually, as I mentioned, several challenges here. And since we have a very frank discussion, I would also mention this when it comes to NATO accession. This is not our topic here, but I have to link this. This is about the demarcation of borders. And Georgia has no demarcated borders with any of the neighbors but Turkey. In 1993, Georgia and Turkey signed the agreement of friendship when there was Turgut Özal in Turkey as a leader. And it was easy to demarcate the borders because it used to be the border between the Soviet Union and Turkey, so everybody knew where the border was going. We actually have a huge problems when it comes to the demarcation of borders with Armenia, with Azerbaijan, let alone Russia, because Russia is saying that your border with me and with me it's not on Soul River, but it's actually close to Zubidi, because I have another state here which recognizes the independence of Afghanistan. So this is a huge problem. And when it comes to the infrastructure, that's where I mentioned that the situation is really poor at the Green border. I can't really confirm anything I have never heard related to any jihadists coming to Georgia from Turkish border. I think that it's more about the propaganda from Russian side, and I believe that it would be very much used by Russians when it comes to the Riga summit, or when it comes to the positive assessment by the Commission, or later on when it comes to the adoption of this the decision by the Council, and then later on the consent coming from the European Parliament.
Yes, I'm waiting for the articles in German or French press saying that it will be difficult to manage, and it's the problem for our security.
Well, I mean, look, this is not a unique for Georgia. Okay, look at Western Balkans. They were the first to actually benefit with the visa-free travel. Look at Macedonia, look at Bosnia, look at Serbia, etc., etc. They, starting from 2009 and 2011, some of them from 2009, some of them 2011, they are benefiting with visa-free travel. And I don't think that created a huge obstacles or problems. And it's even those people who actually are losing from the visas are the so-called bona fide travelers. Those who really want to cross the border, having the visa regime cannot really stop them to cross the border if they are like a kind of bad people, you know. It's not a fortress. They can easily, it's a 21st century, they can easily go from one place to another if they decide so. Who are actually losing with that are the people who are actually, as it was mentioned, the middle class and so on and so forth.
May I add something? I can assure you it is not easy to cross Turkish-Georgian border. I tried to do it this summer. It was challenging. And I would say also that Georgian border guards are equipped with all this equipment to check biometric passport. Maybe it's why this line of waiting cars are so
I think
long.
that the gentleman was referring to the green border, not the checkpoint.
You mean green border?
Well, basically, when you have visa-free regime with the EU, with a country, somebody can drop to the country and then go to the EU, and that's the argument that for sure will be used by to frighten the European Union countries.
It's just green, you know. Also, it's quite easy to cross Polish green border from Belarus.
Well, and in fact, crossing the border from Turkey to Georgia and then trying to move to the European Union on land means that you have to go through the whole Russia. So
doesn't make sense. You should go to Greece rather than going to Georgia. Why should you cross? Look at the map. It's down there. You should go there.
Short comment on jihadists. I think just to support you, I think jihadists are not a big problem for Georgia, because of course there are some people supporting jihad. I mean, I met a couple of them in Kyrgyzstan, but it's not a big deal. Most of them are living for Syria. So the more will go, the less will be left. And I don't think they are going to use legal measures. They will not come back.
For what?
For what? I mean, yeah, they will stay there. So I think this problem actually is smaller than it used to be. So I don't think that's something we should really worry about.
What we should worry about is what's happening in Chechnya now, and there is unfortunately not much information about what's
Well, I think it's not a big
hope
deal.
that it's not something like It's
It's not important actually.
oh, it is important. Because
Yes, it is.
it's very
No,
important.
okay.
But I think it does not apply to Georgia so much. I mean,
No.
Georgia has its own local people supporting jihad, so I don't think there will be any more coming from Chechnya. I mean,
Oh,
it's not.
let's hope so. Sure. But we should know.
There's
what's
the
happening.
other way migration. There's those people, those former Chechen people from Pankisi Gorge. Some of them are coming back to Chechnya because it's easier to get a job. So I think this kind of the migration or this flow is going in the opposite direction. So it just I think it's not an issue for this visa liberalization.
No,
thing.
it's not linked
an
there.
issue.
Definitely. But I do remember how everything was happening, starting there in the first Chechen war, then the second Chechen war. So we never know how it would continue. So that's why I am saying that it's very interesting to know what's happening there.
Yeah.
Konrad Zaszczep, Polish Institute of International Affairs. I would like to come back to this Asian and South Ossetian issues and the issue whether this visa-free regime may be something attractive for people from these regions. So this is really interesting topic, and I fully agree with Maciej that these authorities in these territories, they will react for this, so they know what is going on. And for example, if Georgians are planning to build shopping mall somewhere in close to Inguri, so this is already influencing their policies. So they are already probably going to block this travel from Abkhazia to Georgian-controlled territories, which is of course a huge problem for those, especially for those Georgians from Gali. But I'm afraid that this is the trend, and they will go for complete blockade there at the border. Also because of the economic trends. So I'm fully aware that Georgian villages are quite poor and the life is quite hard. But I think the trend is that Georgia will slowly develop, and they will have more and more problems because of the situation in Russia. I mean, in terms of economics, of course, it's not the situation right now, because right now it's more or less equal. And about South Ossetia, I think still those South Ossetians, they can be blocked to go from South Ossetia to Georgian-controlled territory, but still they can travel through Vladikavkaz, and I even met some people there close to the Zemona Sea border crossing. People from South Ossetia traveling through Vladikavkaz to Georgia, so there are always still opportunities for them. And I have also other let's say question to you concerning this, whether generally this visa liberalization issue may be served by the government as a success to the society. Because I have some doubts, but I wonder what is your opinion.
Well, it definitely will be shown as a success. This is actually more direct advantage for the society than the association agreement, in fact, because every person with a valid biometric passport can just, as we know with all this reservation that most of people can't afford it, but anyway, can buy a ticket and just go to the European Union without waiting in the queue, without paying another 30 euro for a visa. And I'm sure it's going to be shown as a big success, because it's going to be a success indeed. Also, referring to your remarks on Abkhazia and Ossetia, of course, as Vano said, we cannot compare it one-to-one with Transnistrian case, but after there was a decision on visa liberalization for Moldova, the number of passport applications from Transnistria increased dramatically, and there were some thoughts that it might cause blocking the so-called border with the so-called Transnistria, but in fact it didn't happen. Partially because people traveling from Transnistria to the European Union and coming back are bringing financial resources that are to be used in the Transnistrian perimeter. So I don't say it's gonna apply for Abkhazia and Ossetia, but we can look at the Moldovan example, and this is also a possible scenario.
I had a follow-up to Conrad's question. So I noticed in the recommendations the comment of campaigning on campaigning on the visa waiver and campaigning on upgrading the system and whatnot. So campaigning, you know, it's inherently political, and it's taking something and making it your own, your party or your position or, you know, whomever it is. Might this present problems down the road, pitting one party against another, or, you know, leading to breakdown in coalition if one party can say this was ours, we did it, not you? Might that, I mean, Georgia has done this before, might that happen down the road? Do you see that?
Well, I don't think that this is the achievement of this administration, or this is the achievement of the previous administration. I think that, and this is something which we can say for 100%, and can you give the example of that this is the achievement of the previous Saakashvili government and the current government. Because during Saakashvili's government, the visa dialogue as a process started, and this is a starting point of first step towards the visa-free travel. And then it was during the new government when former Commissioner Cecilia Malmström visited Tbilisi back in 2013 on the 25th of February, and she gave the visa liberalization action. So basically, then these governments actually fulfilled the first phase, as I mentioned, and then the second phase. Of course, I do agree with you that there will be that, okay, we started this and you finished that, and etc., etc. But from my point of view, this is a continuity. This is not an achievement of the previous government or the current government. This is the achievement of both of them. Because, as I said, there are the process started before 2012 elections during the Saakashvili administration. The process is going, and hopefully it could end in Riga summit, or it could be significant cornerstone and end in 2016. When we can say that actually this is an achievement of the country, not a government per se. But what I say when I say about the public awareness campaign is basically about to say to people that it's not about the job opportunities in the European Union. It's rather about the visa-free travel, going there and coming back again. And it also, and this anti-discrimination law that I mentioned will also contribute in terms of decreasing the number of asylum seekers from Georgia to European Union.
But I wouldn't be so optimistic as Vano that it will be shown as the country's success. I'm pretty sure, having studied political marketing, for instance, that each government will try to benefit from this. But that's the nature of having the democratic system and the election and the change of the government. The current government always benefits from developments that even were started by the previous government.
Oh yeah, sure. Of course, Georgian Dream would say that it's their achievement, and the Saakashvili government would say that it's. I mean, the people who are supporting it, it's an achievement of Saakashvili. But from my point of view, again, it's my personal opinion. It's an achievement of both, basically, more or less.
Okay. Any other comments, perhaps?
I'm sorry, because of my English. We discuss today's important issues about Georgia. such as the European Partnership Initiative and the visa-free regime for Georgian. I would like to say a few sentences about our tasks in relation to the youngest citizen of this country, because I think small problems exist beside great problems and they also need our note. I'm Vice President of the Educator Association in Warsaw. We run 42 small rural schools in Poland, which cannot be maintained by local authorities because of demographic reasons from closing. We have also kindergarten points in each of our schools, at each of our schools. Our experiences are moving to Georgian. Educator implements educational programs in Georgia. This year we have completed 13th program in this country. We help establish centers of pre-primary education in the rural schools in Georgia. We write programs of preschool education and we train Georgian teachers. After the execution of each program, we encourage the Georgian educational authorities for continuation of our didactically educational form and methods. We realize our educational programs in cooperation with the Association Civitas Georgica in Tbilisi from 2006. We are pleased with the results of cooperation for Georgian kids. Thank you.
May I come on? And we, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, are financing it. Yes, thank you.
Do you have any other comments or remarks?
Quick remark. I'm so glad that he spoke up about this. This is phenomenal. Because you were speaking earlier about the middle class and the poor Georgians, and this is perhaps a really big opportunity that I could see your research going in, further into this. Perhaps as we see the way this unfolds is education, because many critics have said that education is one of the key people-to-people contacts between a country like Poland that has a lot to teach Georgia and a country like Georgia. And so it's possible that with the introduction of visa waiver, it does make it easier for youth to travel, and it makes it easier for institutions like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to fund programs bringing in these village children that can then go back and sort of have a new perspective. So I'm really glad he said that. This is the inner optimist shining. But I'd be curious, as you go along, to sort of see how this may develop to give opportunities for the villages in Georgia.
I will add also that Georgia is among our priority countries in our development aid. Since some years.
Well, let me thank you all of you. If there's no question, it was really interesting to exchange views with you. I hope that we would keep in touch, and I hope that we would continue working on the until we have this African travel. And I think that hopefully starting from 2016, the Georgian citizens who are holding the biometric passports would not need to go and to pass all these procedures, and they can easily come to Poland or to any other states of the Schengen area. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to also thank you for coming, for sharing your opinions with us. I would encourage you to go through this brief, and also not to leave immediately and to help us with all this food that is left. Kuba, do you want to say something? Or? No. So thank you very much.
Thank you.